Soul Soup. I'm Dr. Janette Freeman, and we're here to dish up a little food for your soul and some warmth for your heart as we are finishing our series on I Am Present, on the power of now. And today's class is on the meaning of surrender. The meaning of surrender. So settle in and take a journey with me on this unpacking of the meaning of surrender, pulling from Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, from the very last chapter. I have been profoundly moved by his work and other teachers' work and the contemplation, actually, of the meaning of surrender. The meaning of surrender. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to pull from right at the very beginning in page, at the beginning of this chapter. And he says, surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. Take a breath with that. Yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. The only place where you can experience the flow of life is in the now, in the present moment. So to surrender is to accept the present moment unconditionally and without reservation. It is to relinquish resistance to what is. Inner resistance is to say no to what is. So inner resistance is all the ways that we go, no, this shouldn't be happening. It can be simple, like, I don't like this weather. Why is this weather happening? I don't like that. I mean, how many times does your voice inside your head constantly having an opinion about what it likes and what it doesn't like? And how many times is it saying, I don't like? It's complaining. It doesn't like something the way it is. If something were different. So surrendering is talking about, in the most minute detail, the present moment. Allowing what is happening to happen. Surrender is an internal experience of non-resistance. And we can tell what it feels like internally. When I am resisting what is happening, I don't like this about my life. If this were better, I don't like this challenge. This is coming up. This is hard. I mean, we have hardships, right? So to like it, that doesn't seem to make sense. It doesn't seem authentic, right? But this is a practice of wanting our own presence and wanting our own peace and wanting our own internal happiness more than we want to fight against what is happening. It takes trust, and it takes practice, and it takes practice, a constant practice, to learn mindfulness techniques and mindfulness practices, because the mind will take us into deep complaining and deep resistance, right? So he shares this great example because, surrender, sometimes we think of surrender as, oh, then I'm just giving up. I'm just surrendering. I'm giving up. Well, it doesn't mean you don't want something to be different, and it doesn't mean you don't take action. And he shares the example of being stuck in the mud. Let's say your car gets stuck in the mud. And of course you don't want to be stuck in the mud. And of course you want to do something about it. But being resistant to being stuck in the mud is to get upset and say, this shouldn't be happening. And then start to blame somebody for this is happening and blame the car and blame the weather and blame the mud, right? And then it's a struggle to get it out. And it's a constant struggle, and your peace has been destroyed. So the inner experience is to say, okay, I'm stuck in the mud. I let go of my resistance that it should not be happening. I let go of my demand that it should not be happening and go, hey, it's happening. Now notice the difference internally, because this internally is what matters. Internally, I see the car is stuck in the mud. I'm going to take a breath and come into this moment and accept what is happening in this moment, return to my peace. Now, it doesn't mean you just sit there then in the car and say, I am surrendered to being stuck in the mud. I'm never going to do anything about it. It's an internal experience of coming back into peace, accept what is happening, because energetically, you don't lose your energy. Now you have some intelligence and some wisdom to call for help or to have an idea of how you can get out of the mud. So the intelligence for solving problems or moving to a new solution is much better accessed when we're not in resistance to what is happening. So surrender, the meaning of surrender, begin to understand it as an internal experience of letting go of our resistance to what is happening in this moment. This entire work is about training ourselves to experience happiness, peace, through acceptance of the present moment and through noticing and being in the present moment. All right, so he has another example in here about living in the present moment. And that is, imagine a thick fog, right? Imagining a thick fog, and you're moving in a thick fog. And the mind is going to go, I can't see very far ahead of me, and I can't see behind me. The fog is your past and your future. You can't see, okay? So the mind will constantly look, I can't see. But if the flashlight that shows just enough in front of you is your conscious presence, it's the part of you that knows exactly what to do. So when we're talking about surrendering, we're talking about coming more deeply into presence, more grounded in our conscious presence. And then it's like our flashlight gets stronger, and there is a sense of trust. We don't have an overwhelming need to see way into the future because it's foggy. Or we're not looking in the past where we can't see it either. We're staying present, knowing that as we move forward, our flashlight is going to show us where to go. So if you're holding that flashlight, but you're looking clear off into the future, into the fog, it's going to be easy to trip all over the rocks that are underneath your feet. So our practice again is being willing to surrender to the fact that you don't have to see everything in the future. You don't have to relive the past. That you can experience more deeply this present moment. The more we do that, the brighter that flashlight of consciousness becomes, the more peaceful we are, and the more intelligent we are. And more than that, the more we are in the flow of living. So the meaning of surrender allows us to live within the context of living in flow. And don't we all want that? To know that life is flowing, that I'm in the right place at the right time, that things are coming to me, that people, places, resources come at the right time. We can imagine flow like a river. And when we're floating down a river and we're in presence, that means we're not resistant to the rocks, to the trees, to the movements that we're going through. We're not resistant. We actually rest and the river can take us gently around the rocks. The river can guide us around that. We can get what we need and move down the river. So this practice, in opposed to being in resistance to the river, would be to complain about the rocks, to complain that it's going too fast, to complain that the river's going too slow, to complain about the people that are riding down the river with you, to complain about the weather is not so good. And in that sort of flow, we hit the rocks, we hit up against other people, we hit up against things, and then we get in more and more resistance. And the way to begin this is to surrender, to take a breath, and to come in to the present moment more and more and more. Now, we all want to create a greater life, and we all want to experience a greater life. Now, I want to look and see what he says about this. To what determines that the most? He says, it is the quality of your consciousness. At this moment, that is the main determinant of what kind of future you will experience. So to surrender is the most important thing you can do about positive change. Any action you take is secondary. No truly positive action can arise out of an unsurrendered consciousness. So there's a question about, I got a situation and it's unpleasant and it's unsatisfactory. And if I accept this moment as it is, does that mean that I'm going to be stuck with it? It's just the opposite. If we don't accept it, if we resist against it, we keep it to us. What you resist persists. To fight against something doesn't heal it. It keeps it in place. It's like saying, this is a problem. This is a problem. I'm fighting up against it. This shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening. But it gives it strong reality. It keeps it in place metaphysically, keeps the problems in place. So we are invited to surrender our resistance to whatever is happening in order to experience greater peace and in order to experience greater flow. There's a great book I read recently that's touched me deeply, and that's Michael Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment. And so that whole book really talks about his life and how this surrender experiment was a part of his experiment in life. And he discovered, if you read The Untethered Soul, it's a great explanation of the mind and the busyness of the mind and the yakking of the mind and the capacity to get under the mind and to flow with life. And so in that book, he talks about just making this great decision to surrender to what life brought to him. That he trusted. It's like in that surrender, you can trust what life brings you. That his mind would constantly say, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I want this. I don't want that. But his deeper desire was for peace. The deepest container that held him was his desire for presence, for that experience of the quiet mind, of the openness and of the presence that is experienced in that quiet mind. And that desire became so strong that he didn't want to fight up against what showed up. And he understood that his mind is going to complain. It's going to say, I don't want that. I do want that. I don't want that. And so he shared examples. One example I thought was great. He had this piece of land and he went away and out of town. And when he came back, one of his associates or friends started building a house on his land. And of course, his mind was like, you can't do that. Don't do that. You can't do that. Like, are you nuts? Just, you didn't even ask. You're building a house. And the person says, well, you can have the house. So he went upstairs and he realized his mind is having a fit, and he had already decided to surrender to what shows up. So he went down and he helped her build a house. And he kept doing these kind of things. And what was so beautiful about his story was all the amazing, beautiful abundance and money and prosperity and spiritual gifts that came to him, and difficulties that came, that he just accepted that the difficulties were there because he wanted more peace instead of anything else. As we experience more and more presence, as we experience more and more peace, and we make that be the deepest desire, that our little complaints, that we can see those as a part of the mind tricks that keep us out of our peace. The mind is not there to bring you peace. The mind is the part that keeps us in separation from our peace. So until we learn and practice that non-resistance, practice that capacity to not believe every little old thing that the mind says, not believe every little, I don't like that the mind says, and allow life to start dishing up guidance, start dishing up support, start dishing up that. In order to do that, we've got to get in the river, in the flow. And the greatest tool that will allow us and help us to do that is to begin to understand more deeply the mind, the silly mind, the busy mind, the constant opinionated mind, constantly in resistance to the now, constantly in resistance to what's happening now, constantly in the future, constantly in the past. But our practice to get under that mind, to move into the present moment, to allow our breath to take us under the mind, to take us more deeply into the present moment. Unless we do that, we will not experience that peace. He says in the book, until you practice surrender, the spiritual dimension is just something that you read about, you talk about, you get excited about, but it doesn't become a part of the dimension that you live in. Not until we surrender more deeply does it become a living reality for us. So through surrender, through non-resistance, spiritual energy, spiritual awakening, spiritual flow begins to live through us. So we recognize simply this. The mind, which is the state, creates a state of suffering, believe it or not. And underneath that busy mind is presence, peace, flow, life. Let me go back to the book. I love this chapter. All right, so some of the biggest challenge about this when disaster strikes, right? When bad things happen, when you've got big challenges, right? And it's like, how can you say, I just surrender to that? Let's see what he says. Whenever any kind of disaster strikes or something goes seriously wrong, illness, disability, loss of home or fortune, or socially defined identity, breakup of a close relationship, death or suffering of a loved one, or your own impending death, know that there is another side of that you are just one step away from something incredible. a complete alchemical transmutation of the base metal of pain and suffering into gold. And that one step is surrender. It doesn't mean you're going to be happy about it. It doesn't mean you like it. You won't, and your mind will be in overload. But fear and pain can become transmuted into inner peace and serenity. And that can only come from a very deep place, from the unmanifested itself, from the peace of God, which passes all understanding. With this awareness is that you are indestructible and you are immortal. This is not a belief. This is an absolute certainty that needs no evidence or proof. So in all the changes, the surrender is the internal experience. This is what is happening now. This is what is happening now. I can accept what is happening. I may not like it, but I want peace in the middle of it more than I want to resist it. More than I want to resist it. He says, when there's no way out, there is always a way through. Don't turn away from the pain. Face it. Feel it fully. Feel it. Don't think about it. When we're experiencing pain, when we're going through things, the pain takes over. Don't push it away. That doesn't help. That's resisting the pain. Surrendering to the pain. I know it feels like it's going to keep you stuck there. And I've been afraid of that too. Like if I can just hold it over there and keep my mind in the right place. But it comes in another door. So bring presence to the pain through feeling it. In other words, get under the mind. The mind keeps it alive. The mind keeps pain alive by thinking about it and keeping generating it and talking about it and thinking about it and dwelling upon it. And the way we get under that is to be with it, to keep our connection in the breath, and noticing where is it in the breath. We'll do this. We'll do a process in a moment. So we want to give all attention to feeling. All attention to feeling, not to the person, not to the event, not to the situation that has caused it, not to let the mind use the pain to create a victim identity, to create a problem, to create more problems. We want to give it full attention and full acceptance. And by giving something full attention and full acceptance, we access the power of now, the power of presence. No resistance allows the healing to take place, allows what's coming up to be felt and experienced and released so that we can get back in that river, back in that peace that we desire deeply. But it's not up to us to decide when that pain arises. So my suggestion is, and I'm reminding myself as well, that when something is arising, feel it, feel the pain, feel the feelings. And when we bring presence to it without resisting it, without pushing it away, we're able to come back into that peace, back into that surrender, back into that place where we can actually choose. So choice is a part of this conversation. And we think, oh, I've got to choose something different. I can't give in to this. I can't give into this problem. I've got to choose to think above it. The thing is we can't actually use choice unless we're present, because we're operating out of subconscious programs, and mind stuff. So in order to have choice, we have to have presence. We have to move more deeply into presence. So we've got the busy mind, and we've got the resistance, and we've got the struggles, and we've got the opinions, and we've got, I like that and I don't like that. And then we want to learn to experience whatever's arising in the body. Experience it and feel it. Allow ourselves to go deeply into the feeling without thinking about it. And then we come back to peace, come back to presence, whenever that happens. And then from that place, that's where choice really, really happens. And I will read something about that. I think, oh, I can't see it. The power of shoot. Choice begins the moment you disidentify from the mind and its conditioned patterns, the moment you become present. So let's do a process. Let's just go right into a process and connect to your breath. That's right. And just right now, allow yourself to feel any resistance that you have had over the last day or week. Any emotional pain, any struggles, any problems that you have that you just want to solve and get through. Anything that comes up for you at all, trust that, because we want to practice acceptance and practice non-resistance and practice surrender. That in this moment, I'm going to allow everything to be as it is. And in order to do that, we have to get out of our mind and into our body and into the breath. For that is where we access the present moment. So bring your attention to the nostrils and notice the breath moving in the body. Watching as the breath moves in the body. And bringing full awareness and attention to bringing that breath wherever in your body does resistance lie. Like sometimes you may have tightness in your chest and your heart, a closed heart. You might have tightness in your abdomen. You might have a throat that's closing up. You might have a head that hurts or a back that hurts. And just allow your gentle breath to go right to that place. That's right. Allowing the breath to go right there. Breathing. Allowing any tension to be there. Allowing any feelings of anxiety or anything else that you've described as anxiety to be there. Bringing full, complete acceptance to every feeling that is there right now. And bringing your breath as presence, as love, as acceptance to all those parts in the body where the old resistance or residual energy has been blocked. Breathing deeply in the body. Feeling the movement of air and breath, following wherever Your body asks for it through your attention. It may shift. You may be breathing into your heart, and then you notice tension in the abdomen, and so breathe then into your abdomen. And it may shift, and follow the breath wherever it goes and breathe into it. And even though the mind up above on the surface of your lake is busy, we're not concerned. Let it do what it is. We're not even going to be in resistance to that. That mind is just talking. It always has an opinion. And we are more interested in surrendering to the present moment, to practicing allowing everything to be exactly as it is. That's right. Even more presence, staying connected to the breath. Sometimes the breath is very gentle and slow and quiet and subtle. And sometimes if there's a lot of struggle or resistance or feelings in the body, let your breath match it. Maybe breathe through your mouth and breathe in deeply, breathing in oxygen to that part of the body. And moving the energy that's trapped. Breathing deeply. And when the mind has something to tell you about something else you should be doing, just come back to the breath. Because your peace and your presence is more important than solving anything or doing anything right now. Your presence is creating a life of flow. And you can trust life to bring you exactly what is needed. The more we keep surrendering to the flow of life. That's right. And as we get present in the peace of this oneness, this presence, only then do we really activate true choice. We can imagine in this peace of I am here, that this presence, this I am nature, this higher self of you is the one that is here. It's beyond the mind. I am. And what is the choice? The choice is to remember a deeper truth. I am present. I am surrendered to the flow of life. My present moments contain all that is needed. I am supported and supplied and blessed. I am guided and directed. All the dreams of the I am presence are already coming to me. There's no worries. I'm trusting life. I am surrendered to this moment. I am holding that flashlight so that I am nature is guiding me in the right and perfect direction to go. I am here. I am safe. I am loved. I am abundantly blessed. I am prospered in all that is needed. I am that I am. All that I need is within this presence, this present moment, and I can trust life. I am surrendered to this moment, and I am in the flow of life. And tapping into this breath and this presence is so good. As we prepare to come out of this place, feel what it feels like to keep some of your awareness in your body. That's the key. Out of the mind, some awareness in the body, in the breath, in the presence, right here. And the more we travel with some awareness in the body, in the present moment, in the breath, we can flow much better. And that's a good thing. So take a breath, bringing awareness right back here, right to this moment. How wonderful it feels. Notice how you feel. That's right. So thank you so much for being with me today on Soul Soup, and for connecting and being with us on this, in this class of I Am Present. In this class of learning to get underneath the mind, connecting to the body and to the breath, to get in the present moment and to begin to live in the flow of life more deeply, more richly, more profoundly. Thank you to Eckhart Tolle in his wonderful book, The Power of Now. Such a beautiful guide. So as we complete this, I want to thank you. I want to thank our donors. This has been brought to you because of the donors that make it possible, and I want to thank you for that. Also, there's information on a brand new class that I'm starting online and in person in Fresno on this very subject. Living in the flow, the power of surrender, and living in the flow. And we will look at Michael Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment. We'll pull from other books as well. And mostly it's a practice. It's the capacity to be together in community and in practice, to practice this mindfulness and practice this meditation in order to experience it in a way that is real. Because I know the mind, it's busy. It's busy mind. So thank you so much for being with us on Soul Soup. And I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. And many, many blessings, my friends.